the Dallas Morning News in classified ads.
No, display advertising.
Display advertising, excuse me. Okay, of course the story is, and has been well recorded and was well publicized in the Warren Report, that both before and after, sometime around noon and sometime around 1, that Jack Ruby was at the Dallas Morning News. The reason this is an issue is that because several people, none the least of which Jean Hill, by the way, I'm not sure you mentioned that tonight. She didn't mention it. The man she saw moving briskly in front of the Texas School Book Depository, she saw on television 2 days later after the shooting of Oswald, and they showed the picture of Jack Ruby, and at the time she called her daughter in and said, "That's the man I saw." So she said then, and she says now, that the man she saw in front of the Texas School Book Depository was Jack Ruby. She is not alone. Phil Willis, who took all the photographs, including that one in Dealey Plaza, knew Ruby and claims he saw him in front of the Texas School Book Depository in the brief minutes after the assassination, and in fact has his photograph. All right? Another man, Dallas policeman by the name of Tilson, has a strange story that he was off duty with his young daughter. They were stopped at the light in Industrial there and Commerce on the west side of the Triple Underpass. He saw the motorcade come rushing by, saw the agents waving the machine gun, saw the confusion going on in the presidential car, and immediately realized something that very much wrong had occurred. And he said while he was sitting there taking all that in, he saw a man in a dark suit come running, sliding down the backside of the Triple Underpass, run over to a black car, toss something in it. He doesn't ever get a good look at what the man was carrying, but he put something in the car. He jumped in the car and took off. This policeman Tilson began to chase that car, chased him all the way around on Simmons Expressway, got his daughter to pick out a license number on the car, and then lost him in traffic because he had to come around. Later, a little bit later, he stopped and called Dallas Police Headquarters and gave them this license number and told them the circumstances and asked them, they said, well, okay, thank you, we'll check it out, whatever. After that, there's no mention of that. The Dallas Police never made any mention that ever happened. After that, that was the end of that. Tilson threw away the piece of paper that had the number on it, and now he can no longer remember exactly what the license number was. So that's about the end of that story, except that Tilson, when interviewed by Earl Goltz in the late 70s or whatever, he too claimed that, in fact, his quote, I believe, was that man was not Jack Ruby, it was his twin brother. Okay, so now we've got several people. And also, I won't go into it, but those of y'all that are real familiar with the case might recall the story of Julia Ann Mercer, who saw the pickup truck on the other side of the Triple Underpass and a man walking with a gun case up on there, and she swears up and down the man driving the truck was Jack Ruby. Now, that was about an hour and a half or more prior to the assassination. But now, there's the story of Ruby in Dealey Plaza. Was he really there? By the way, I'll share another little story with you. Gary Shaw has interviewed a man who's now in prison, who at the time of the assassination was quite in with that Dallas underworld bunch, including R.D. Matthews. R.D. Matthews was a very close friend of Jack Ruby and ran a bail bond office somewhere down near the Dealey Plaza or whatever. This man has told Gary Shaw that on the day of the assassination, just shortly, sometime after noon, that he was in the bail office with R.D. Matthews, and Jack Ruby came bustling through the door and said, come on, let's go down to Dealey Plaza and see the fireworks. And R.D. Matthews and Ruby bustled out of the office and headed down towards Dealey Plaza, and that was the last that all saw him. But he told Gary that later he understood that R.D. Matthews and Ruby stood somewhere near the southwest corner of Maine and Houston, which, of course, is only, 2 blocks away from the Dallas News, and watched the next to Dealey Plaza. So now we've got 2 versions of what Jack Ruby might have been doing, and now we're going to hear from Wanda and hear her story. Well, Seth Canner never said anything about being in Dealey Plaza, but at Parkland Hospital, right. Seth Canner was and still is a respected newspaper man who knew Jack Ruby quite well. He'd done some stories on him and around his club. And he told the Warren Commission at that time that he had encountered Jack Ruby at Parkland Hospital. And in this instance, it wasn't a case of just, hey, I think I saw him over there. Rudy came up and spoke with him. They had a little brief conversation. In fact, according to Seth, who I knew all the way back from the time he worked at the Florida Press, he said Jack Ruby, as I recall, Jack Ruby asked him if he thought he ought to close his club, and unlike that, was acting very distraught and upset. And this was, maybe 1:30, something like that, about an hour after the assassination at Parkland Hospital. The Warren Commission downplayed his whole story and said that in all likelihood that he was mistaken. The last House Assassination Committee, though, more or less supported Seth and said that probably he was not mistaken and that very possibly Ruby was at Parkland Hospital. By the way, for those of you all who are not real familiar with the case, I might point out that Friday afternoon, he definitely was at police headquarters trying to get into Will Fitch's office where they were holding Oswald. The next evening, he was at Dallas Police Headquarters at a press conference that they held by Henry Wade. He and a friend of mine, Tony Record, who's a photographer of the Star-Telegram, almost got in a fight because Record wouldn't stand on the table back at the back of the room, and so he could get up so he could take photographs, and Ruby wanted to be up there too, and they almost had a little set to, and Tony Record finally backed down, and Ruby wound up standing on the table in the back of the room during the press conference. Interestingly enough, during this press conference, Henry Wade was given a background rundown of Lee Harvey Oswald, and he said, and Oswald was a member of the Free Cuba Committee. Okay? Boyce comes from the back of the room. That's the Fair Play for Cuba Committee. And he says, oh, yes, that's right. He was a member of the Fair Play for Cuba Committee. Well, this is very, very pertinent. The Free Cuba Committee was an anti-Castro group. The Fair Play for Cuba Committee was a pro-Castro group that Oswald, of course, was linked to in New Orleans. And the man who corrected Henry Wade, Jack Ruby. All right? And then, of course, then the next morning, when they transferred Oswald, we all know what Jack Ruby did. So, based on that, now Wanda, tell us what you did.
I'll try to put it in as kind of time frame as I can.
Okay.
And maybe this will help. On the day of the assassination, it was probably, I'd say, a few minutes after 12 o'clock noon. Jack Ruby came in to the advertising department to check on his bed. The salesman that handled his account was out. So Ruby sat down at his desk to wait for him to come back. Ruby sat there, I don't know how long, for a little while. And then he got up and came over and sat down in the chair by my desk. I was secretary to the advertising manager. We chit-chatted for a little bit, and then some of the salesmen came into the office, and one of them called back to me and said that Kennedy had been shot. So after a few seconds, I remembered the great adulation that Ruby had always shown for Kennedy. He was a demigod to him. It was sad, the way, the adulation the man had. And I looked over at Ruby, he was still sitting there, and he was so pale, and just dead sitting there. And I asked him if he was all right. And he said something or mumbled something, I don't know. And he got up and walked away. And then some more salesmen came into the office. Well, we were all busy discussing the shooting and all this. And a little bit later, I happened to look over to the windows that overlook Houston Street. There's a side of our advertising department. And Ruby was just standing there staring out the window. And that was the last time I remembered seeing him until I saw him on television.
Mm-hmm. He was there, though.
But yeah, I was in the time element, I would say it's maybe 5 or 10 minutes after 12 until the salesman that originally told us of the shooting had been at Dewey Plaza, where I don't know. So by the time they walked 2 blocks back to the office and told us, and then Ruby was still there at my desk, and he walked to the window, and which could have been anywhere from 5, 10, 15 minutes, because more salesmen were coming in and we were all talking.
One, I guess my question would be, well, let me phrase it 2 parts. How certain are you of that time frame? And 2, is it possible that he was there, say, several minutes past 12:30?
He was there past 12:30.
But I mean, was it possible that he did not come there until after 12?
The reason I knew it was 12 at the time, I didn't have any reason to remember it because it was just another day. But the other secretary, and I went to lunch with one by preference, and she had already gone to lunch. Most of the salesmen were out to lunch, And this is when Ruby came in, so it had to be after 12 o'clock.
They all left right at noon normally, right?
Yeah,
So they were all gone, so that's why you know it was sometime after noon.
Yeah,
Did you have any idea how much time went by between the time that he showed up and these people were gone?
No, I
and the time the
don't.
salesman came
It
in?
could have been 5 minutes, it could have been 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I don't know. I saw him come in, and I knew his salesman, John Newnham, was out. And Ruby just sat down at his desk to wait for him, which was usual. But what was unusual was for Ruby to come down back and sit at by my desk. Usually, if he did come to my desk, it was to ask on a salesman's schedule or something about his ass.
Did y'all,
You know,
did y'all talk any of
that was the first time I had ever had a one-to-one conversation with him.
What did y'all talk about?
I don't remember.
Just
Just
pleasant
general,
dreams?
because we hadn't talked for 2 or 3 minutes when the salesman came in and told us to shoot.
Okay, so it's right before the salesman came in.
Yeah, So that's why I said it could even be as late as 15 after 12 when Ruby came into the office.
With this ambulance for the president,
Yeah.
why do you think Ruby did not go out to see lawyers? Especially after finding out that Noon was out.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. We just assumed, or maybe I just assumed that he had seen it earlier and then maybe come to the news. I don't know. Because I thought about that later with his adulation.
A lot of people did.
While he wasn't down there.
There must have been a lot of talk about that. There's a lot of people did that.
Yeah.
I don't know if that question was ever asked. Why did you go to the president?
Yeah. I don't know.
Do you know if anyone would ask you that?
No.
He didn't mention anything like that to you, did he? Well, I saw him earlier, he looked good. or
No,
something.
to my knowledge, we didn't even discuss the, keep in mind, we were very verbal on our politics at that time, but very little wisdom. You know, a lot of talk. Ruby was on one side of the fence, myself and our clique were on the other side of the fence. So we did not discuss politics.
And this was unusual for him to approach you on a one-to-one conversation.
Yeah, normally he was so reserved, it was almost to the point of shyness. And then it was just very quick about something about his ad or himself in schedule.
When he approached you in this conversation, did you feel that it was an approach of spontaneity, or did you wonder about it?
No, spontaneity.
When they-
I didn't even, well,
Very few.
in research department,
Down the street.
yeah, our department was a huge room. We had research, and then our big department, the national advertising there.
And it was all big open room.
And it was one big open room, and there may have been 3 or 4 in national, maybe 2 or 3 in our department, 2 or 3 in research. I don't remember the numbers, you know, on who were there. We rotated going to lunch, there'd always be people in the office.
When he approached you, because it was unusual, normally he was shy, almost respectfully shy, but shy. Okay.
Yeah,
When he approached you, what was it just a general hi, or hey, hello, or was it one specific thing that he opened up the conversation?
I don't remember, to the best of my knowledge, he sat down, in the chair before he ever said anything. But there again, this didn't, until I thought about it later, didn't make it because I had been at News at this time for 13 years and knew nearly all the salesmen, you know, all the customers that came into the office. And so I didn't,
Unusual that he
at the time I didn't, because a lot of the customers would come in and sit at my desk.
Well, it really doesn't sound that unusual. He comes in, he waits a while, there's somebody in there with her, so, I mean, it's kind of a natural thing to go over and go sit by a pretty girl.
He wasn't with the salesman. He wasn't with the salesman. But there again, he wasn't robust when he was in the office, of what I had heard.
He didn't throw anybody down the stairs, did he?
No. No, but, he was, when he was in the office, I would say a little to the reserve side. Now, maybe when he was with the salesman, out, or something like this, maybe it was entirely different.
I think it's a good point, that is not.
Several innocent players
Yeah.
witnessed the assassination.
Yeah, did you know Mary Woodley?
What were some of their names?
Mary Woodley?
I knew, she worked in classified diploma and.
No, I think she wrote the women's section.
Oh, did she? Oh, no, she's not the one I'm thinking of.
Okay, well, some of the ones that down there that were witnesses were like having four of them.
She was with two or three others.
Right.
And I was, you
But
know,
they, like, one of them had a Spanish name, I know that.
I'm interested because
Mm.
the news business, there's a lot of talk in the building, and it gets pretty involved.
Oh, sure.
What kind of stuff did you pick up on?
That's the CIA did it.
Okay.
There was no question.
Don't stop.
No, it was strictly scuttlebutt. I don't know where the information came from, who started it. But it was real simple. But the CIA had, or at least a part of it. But
What
one,
happened afterwards is that particular room and stuff?
Thursday,
Yeah.
after the FBI got out of the building. The reason the FBI was because of the Wiseman ad, which turned out to be our nemesis. You
Yeah.
know, the FBI was in the building literally all over for several days, 2 or 3 weeks, because we were under constant bomb threat. I was pregnant at the time, and I know they sent me home at least on 2 different occasions, very quietly.
Were you ever interviewed by the Warren Commission?
No, just by 2 FBI agents.
When was that?
It must have been the following Monday, because we left the news that night because many people were calling. Every vile person in Dallas called us. And since we had run the ad.
Several people are pretty rough,
So it would have had been probably the following Monday.
Okay, how long were they with you?
In our department,
No, when they interviewed you?
oh, not too long.
An hour?
I'd say maybe 10 minutes,
Okay.
if it was that long.
Did they make a report that you know of?
They always make a report.
Well, they make a
I don't
report.
know.
Well,
Did
what,
they ask you to sign anything?
No. Once they found out that I only knew Ruby as a customer, then they lost interest in me.
did they ask you, did you tell them what you told us, that he was sitting there at your desk?
Yeah, And I told them, but as you walked away, that was it. But the way the FBI did me, and I assume the rest of them, one would be very gruff, and the other one would be really sweet. So you ignored the gruff one and poured your heart out to the sweet
It
one.
wasn't until Sunday you realized the significance of Ruby having been there because there would have been no reason.
No, there would been no reason to even,
In other words, you recalled later, like on Sunday after you
Well, yeah, well, tell us about Sunday. Tell us, when you found out, and did you put the two together?
oh, you mean, when did the televised showing of him shooting all that?
Right. Did you see that, or did you hear
No,
that?
I saw it on television.
Did you know when it happened, did you recognize it?
Oh, yeah,
You did? At the time it happened, before they showed his mugshot or anything?
Well, not, whether they had showed the mugshot or I knew when he approached Ruby, I don't know. But I said, oh my God, there's Jack Ruby. Because at the news, he had a demigod vicinity. And we just assumed that he would have shot anyone that killed Kennedy. You know, because it was just sad.
Was this kind of an image that he fostered of himself when around praising Kennedy or something?
Evidently, he was so good at it that I thought he was completely sincere. In fact, on 2 occasions, the salesman actually made him cry. Not weep, but I mean, tears came to his eyes. They would call Kennedy an ugly name. And Ruby would actually weep.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you about that. You said you were talking about the politics and that you didn't really discuss it, that you were on the opposite side. And I think I probably, you and I probably at that time were on the same side. But what did you perceive Ruby as? Did you perceive him as being a liberal? I'm sure glad I'm on the other side.
No, but Ruby was very inconsistent from what I had gathered. I saw one Ruby, and then I would hear of this Ruby, and then another Ruby, and then another Ruby. you know, until I didn't know which Ruby was what, other than the Ruby I knew that came into the office.
Did you hear any of the stories floating around after the assassination that Ruby and Oswald may have known each other?
No.
Do you have any reason to believe or know that maybe true or not?
I don't know. I think I read it in the book or something that they had said.
Well, I know I went back to the Warren Commission volume to see, you know, they did have your name listed in the index, but they, well, I think they either had one or maybe two page references. When I checked, it was somebody else's testimony, and they
Yeah.
simply mentioned your name as one of several people who were there on the floor or
Yeah.
whatever.
My
I wonder why
boss,
the FBI didn't, and the Warren Commission didn't.
I don't know,
use
they
that.
wanted me for the Warren Commission. But I was pregnant at the
Your
time,
boss,
and my boss,
technical coaches and things.
protected me, his boss protected me, right on up to chairman of the board, to keep me out of all that mess. That's, you know,
You were real
at that time.
fortunate, weren't you?
Yes, I was. There was
I
one
know that,
people.
what's his name, Newman?
John Reynolds.
Yeah, they raised him over the coals, didn't they?
Probably, I don't know.
He doesn't work for the news.
John Reynolds, he may be at retirement age, or he may have left. I don't know. Once in a while, I run into someone that I worked with or at.
Do you still work for the
the-
news?
No, I haven't. No, I left in 64.
You know somebody named Jim Willman?
Yes, he was in our department.
On a steward.
Oh, you did? He was a very nice person.
Anything else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could I talk a little bit about that, Ed? We have a couple of
Talk about
seconds.
that.
Okay, well,
You'll pay for it.
no, we had received that ad 2 or 3 months, before it actually appeared in the paper. We kicked it around in our department, I know for several weeks, whether we even wanted to touch it or not. After we threw up our hands, we sent it to the executive department. They kept it, for several weeks. And then finally, they sent the ad back with instruction and training.
Did they, with the instructions, did that say just run it, or did they say run it on and give you?
I don't know, I never saw the actual instruction.
I guess what I'm getting at is, do you think the fact that ad ran that morning, do you think that's sheer coincidence, or do you think?
I think that we were, to actually condemn Kennedy with the ad, no, I don't think it was deliberately done. I think we were so tired of looking at the ad. We had a full page opening, we ran it. Just get rid of it.
How long did you have the ad in-house for being completed?
I would say over 2 months, because we kept it in our department for several weeks. And then we sent it to executive offices, they kept it for several weeks. Before they sent it back to us.
A minimum time would be a month, maximum time?
Minimum would be, yeah, because we debated for a long time, whether we should even run that. And,
Yeah, I don't think that's the official story, no. I know it's not the official story, I just don't know where it began.
Most of this, that's the official.
That's right.
Why? Maybe you're onto something.
Yes.
but the actual time, you know, I don't know, I forgot, it's been too many years, but I know we kept it for a while. You know, I would say 2 or 3 weeks, maybe we just discussed it so much it seemed longer than that. But I know we kept it, at least 2 or 3 weeks before. And then the executive department kept it, before they sent it back to us.
At any time, did you or any others in your department know who really funded that ad?
I don't know,
Was it
the
through-
salesman that handled the account possibly, I don't remember what salesman it
In
was.
other words, the deliberations were done without knowing who was behind it.
I'm sure that the salesman that was, took the ad was always in the meeting.
When did you first learn who really paid for it?
I
And
don't,
where was he then?
I don't know. I don't know.
Has anybody actually established?
Who paid? Who?
Bum Brad.
Oh.
Yeah. Excuse me, I had a question there.
I was in San Francisco when they had it. What is the ditch that we're in? I'm curious.
It had a picture of Kennedy with two pictures really side by side, and one was a full face and one was a side, you know, looking like a police bug shot. And at the top it said wanted for treason. And, no, I'm thinking, that's not the same thing.
No, welcome to Dallas.
That's right. The wanted,
That was a handbill.
the wanted for treason thing was a handbill that they handed out along the parade route. That's right. The ad in the Dallas News said, welcome, Mr. President, something like that. And then it ran down a list of about, what, 20 questions?
20 charges.
Well, it was more like questions, like, why did you allow the Soviet Union to da-da-da-da-da-da? Anyway, it was a bunch of hard-nosed questions, and it was basically, obviously, from a very conservative standpoint, and was not too subtly, let it be known that Kennedy was not, doing what the people that paid the ad wanted him to do.
Signed by somebody named Bernard
White.
He's still right off it when he's from his best friend.
Exactly. And it was signed by many by the name of Bernard Weissman, who was in Dallas at the time, and who, the whole thing was quite a big deal at the time, and they shook the trees for a long time trying to figure out who did that and all like that, and Weissman, Weissman said he got cash money from a guy that was...
Weissman contacted another guy, and the other guy did the footwork. And he went around to a lot of people and got pledges for money. When it came time to collect the money, most of them hadn't paid yet, except one guy who was voluntarily covered for all the others, and that was right.
Done right. So now I'm covered.
Hardly hell.
Any other questions?
What is the official story about the event?
I don't know if there's anything really sinister, but there was a feeling at the time that there may have been people involved that ran the ad, knew what was going to happen. Weissman fled to New York like the day after Ruby got out.
Do you think that if the ad had appeared on...
Here's the ad that I read.
Yeah. Do you think that if the ad had appeared on any other day other than the assassination, that there would have been a ripple over it? Do you think it would? We've often wondered whether or not.
Yeah.
People would have grumbled, but I mean, with the animosity.
Everything I read, I didn't think it.
I don't think the news deliberately ran it on the day of his visit. Number one, it'd be bad taste.
Well, I don't think people were running anything to do with the assassination.
Yeah, well, that copy could have been changed. I don't know whether that was the original copy or not. Welcome to okay.
Well, if you read the ad, it's not really well.
On the day he was here, it says welcome to Dallas.
Right. And here's what Gary Shaw says about the ad. He says, the November 22nd, 63 edition of Dallas Morning News carried the infamous full-page, black-bordered advertisement, highly critical of Kennedy. Among those financing the ad were Nelson Bunker Hunt, son of the oil man. And that's not true. Okay. And Bernard Weissman, who served under General Walker in Germany. Sponsorship of the ad was attributed to the American Fact-Finding Committee, which Weissman later testified was, quote, formed strictly for the purpose of having the name to put the paper, end quote. The advertisement consisted of a large headline, "Welcome Mr. Kennedy to Dallas," followed by a series of critical questions directed to the President. This exhibition of arch conservatism prompted President Kennedy to remark privately in Fort Worth, Texas hotel on the morning of the assassination, quote, "We're really in that country now." That's right. You're right. That's my own thing. Just give you a flavor of the ad. It says, "Welcome Mr. Kennedy to Dallas, a city so disgraced by recent liberal smear of death that its citizens have just elected two more conservative Americans to public office. A city that is an economic boom town, not because of federal handouts, but through conservative economic and business practices. A city that will continue to grow and prosper despite efforts by you and your administration to penalize it for nonconformity to new frontierism. A city that rejected your philosophy and policies in 1960 and will do so again in 1964, even more emphatically than before." And then why is Latin America turning either anti-American or communistic or both, despite its brief yes-4-8 state public policy and their own Ivy Tower pronouncements? Why do you say we set the wall of freedom around Cuba when there's no freedom in Cuba today? Why do we host salute and entertain Tito, Moscow's Trojan horse, just a short time after our sworn-in and Khrushchev embraced the Yugoslav dictator, the great hero and leader of communism? Why is West Hall, head of the U.S. Communist Party, praised in almost every one of your policies and announced that the party will endorse and support your re-election in 1964? Why have you scrapped the Monroe Doctrine in favor of the spirit of Moscow? Mr. Kennedy, Assistant United States Marshal, we demand answers to these questions, and we want them now. Does the American Fact Finding Committee, quote, an unaffiliated and nonpartisan group of citizens who wish to? And you can see. I don't think so, no. And, you know, keep in mind, he posted his book. Right? Yeah, this is 76, and I'm not sure that came out.
It's in the volume, it's in the volume. If you're on interview, 6 people, I believe. And one of the last things, of course, was Tom Bright, where he admitted that, yes, I paid my share, and that was 2 other guys. That was 6 months ago, and as you asked them to pay you the money, they always, no, I haven't had time. You know.
Okay. Yeah, he was thinking about buying cameras. Well, thank you so much. That was very, very interesting. We now may have a problem with who's impersonating Jack Ruby.